very real prospect of a new world order. The new world order does not mean surrendering our national sovereignty or forfeiting our interests. He took an oath to defend the Constitution of the United States of America. By some, he's been called controversial. How can I convince you when you're here to do here? Taking a hard away from me, like when I come here. Your attitude to me with my big life away in fear. Now, keep in mind that some of my guests have been approached by Homeland Security or FBI saying, why are you going over Clay Douglas' show? My message to those guys, if they're listening this morning, is go get a cup of coffee. Maybe you'll learn something. We both took the same vow to defend the Constitution against all enemies, foreign and domestic. I don't recall there being an expiration date on that. He is the free American, Clay Douglas. That's the Free American, weekdays at 7 a.m. Pacific, 10 a.m. Eastern. Every time I think about the damage that's been done, the anger will inside me till I'm almost overcome. I want to down the moon out of the sky and up and down. For the podcast and more details, visit www.freeamerican.com or catch the podcast by phone by calling 832-999-8621.
All right, good morning, ladies and gentlemen. Welcome to another edition of the Free American Hour. Trying to get on to Truth Radio without much success. My guest today is Carl Swensson. Hello, Carl. How are you?
Oh, Leighton, I'm doing just fine. Can you hear me okay?
Yes, sir. I can hear you fine. Let me bring somebody else up here for just a second to try to get this Truth Radio fixed. This is where I upload to number of other places here, and I'm just having we're having a little problem getting everything working here.
Nothing like technical difficulty to start a day.
Yeah, and but we will take care of that in just a second here. Let me try it one more time. Maybe he's got it taken off now, so let's try this out. I've been broadcasting on Truth Radio for a lot of years, off and on. So let's see if we can get this up. Get it up. He's Richard Palmquist is a old friend of mine. Known him for many years. And when we get all the bugs worked out, you know, without additional assistance by the fusion centers. Let's see if we got this clear channel. No, sir. Incredible here. Let me get Richard up and get him to fix this. So we can do the show, get it recorded on everything that we're supposed to be getting it on here.
So what's the weather like for you today, Clayton?
What's the what?
What's the weather like where you're at?
It's a little cool and not bad. Not bad. Not raining or anything today, so it's not bad at all. Not bad at all.
It's just plain cold where I'm at. That's that doggone global warming. Gets us every time.
Yeah, but global warming. All right. Let me, I got Richard coming up here. We're up on Crusade. We're up on Blog Talk.
Morning.
Good morning. I'm still 5 minutes into the show. I still got noise, music, everything playing. You couldn't hear my guest.
I'll go right over there and see what's happening.
All right, say hello to Carl Swensson, and we'll try to get that back up now. Incredible here. At least you don't have far to walk. And we'll bring this up now. All right. We got the noise off. Carl Swensson is my guest today. Thank you, Richard Palmquist, for attending to that matter. You know, I come up about 1 minute before the hour to bring my guests up, to bring all the stations up, and I really appreciate it if we could avoid the music and the static and all that crap when I'm trying to get hooked up and get my guest up. Carl, riseupforamerica.com is your website, and on this I got the man who indicted Obama. Maybe you could explain that to me. Now, let me give you a little introduction, folks. You need to bring yourself up to speed and learn the truth, but of course that's why you're listening to the Free American, and have been for a number of years. If you take the time to listen to this show, check out the webpage below. You'll truly begin to understand the secret code we've been hoodwinked into believing is our Constitution, our rule of law. Listen, and you'll realize why the people who are declaring sovereignty aren't crazy at all. They're the only true patriots left in the land. And, Carl, I'm assuming here that you are an expert in discussing this. What you're talking about is the corporate United States, which is a little different from our plan for this country, what we're supposed to have. And my guest yesterday was talking about the grand juries to indict some of these criminals that have really pulled this wool over our eyes. We're talking about these titles of Esquire, titles of nobility, that of course we fought a war and the British invaded Washington to burn down the records and tried to destroy the whole 13th Amendment, which put a little teeth into the Constitution that our globalist founders like Hamilton, bankers man Hamilton that was in here. And too bad we can't handle it the way Burr handled it, isn't it, these days?
Different times, absolutely different times. We don't have basically any men left of character and courage that are willing to put themselves on the line. So until that happens, we're we're going to remain in a bit of a quagmire here. But you talked about that 13th Amendment. It's curious that the provision disallowing any titles of nobility does in fact remain in the Constitution, but there are no penalties for having assumed any of those titles. There's nothing, no teeth whatsoever. And you're right, the original 13th Amendment did just that and allowed for penalties to be assessed against those people that tried to have positions of a power and authority by virtue of being elected to public office. But that is the single most important aspect to this whole problem we're experiencing now with the completely run-amok government that is using their territory to basically conquer the rest of this nation. We've all been put under the umbrella, so to speak, of corporate America, and heck, we didn't even know that they were doing that to us. But now that enough of us have awakened to this reality, the remedy and the ability to change this is now becoming more and more viable, and that's where people like me and any number of other people out there that are walking the same walk. That's where we come in, and we're trying to make more and more people awake to the idea that we are in fact the sovereigns of this nation, and we created this government, and it is totally within our purview to either change or abolish it. So we're working towards that, but we're not going to be able to do it all in one fell swoop. It doesn't happen that way. We have to nibble around the edges, so to speak, before we can get to the real meat of the issues. And some of us have tried different things like, I don't know, these common law grand juries. And we're doing that. We got a little bit more education. Some of us have tried playing within the realm of the de facto court systems out there with very much the same results. So a different tack has to be incorporated now, and that's what's happening, and it's happening on two different fronts. It's happening on the local front and on the national front. On the local front, you're going to see a rise of people getting involved in their local area politics. And I don't mean in the sense of just being an oversight committee or anything along those lines. I'm talking about really using the God-given powers that we have in order to make sure that our public servants adhere to their contracts, one of which is an oath that they take to that Constitution. And another one is the contract they sign where they pledge to not, how would I say this? when they take office, they pledge to do their best, so help them God. Okay. Well, I don't know of too many public service or public servants out there that are really interested in maintaining or making sure that they are true to the charter, to the contract that they have been given. That doesn't seem to matter much to these people anymore, and we don't seem to be willing to hold them accountable for any such transgressions until now. Well, the local level change is going to happen in the form of these boards of review. I've got one off the ground here in Stockbridge, Georgia. in my county of Henry County is going to be called, or is called, the Patrick Henry Board of Review. Patrick Henry being the namesake for this county here, so it's quite appropriate that it should all get kicked off in this county. What we're going to be doing is going over the cappers for both the county and cities. We're going to be looking for those irregularities that all of us will find if we take the time to look at our city or county cappers, and then direct the council member or commissioners to do our bidding and to exercise the power that we gave them by virtue of being elected to do the right thing and bring these budgets and bring these cappers in line with the reality that we face today. And let me give you an example. It was 2 years ago that I discovered there's about $100 million just laying in one account in what was then the county I lived in, Clayton. And it was what's called a special purpose local option sales tax. And that's where they add a penny to the sales tax in the state, and then they divvy it up between the counties and the cities. Well, the first one that they did here in Clayton County was specifically designed for purposes that were well laid out, well thought out, specifically to be used for that purpose. Well, that was back in 1998, and that tax expired in 2003. The projects that were all part of this were, by and large, mostly completed. And the only open-ended aspect to this was that they could purchase properties based on the need for libraries or recreation centers. Only problem is that was also covered in subsequent special purpose local option sales taxes. So here we've got $100 million just sitting there, burning a hole in the commissioner's pockets, and they decided they want to play some games with that and use it for purposes other than what it was designed for. I uncovered one such glaring illegal act that was committed by the commissioners when they purchased a grocery store down here that has since gone out of business. And this grocery store had no bearing on either rec centers or the libraries. So it was brought to the attention of the commissioners in front of the gathering of people at the commission hearing that this had occurred. The evidence that it was an illegal act was gathered by my group of people, who then submitted it upon request, by the way, to the DA. The DA took a look at this and said, "Thank you very much. We'll pursue it from here." Thinking that we had achieved something, we were feeling pretty good at that point, but we didn't stop just looking at this one particular illegality. Kept digging and found a whole host of expenses that were being drawn, not large amounts, small amounts, 30, 20, 50,000 here and there, and they were all coming in under the heading of various. We could figure out what this various idea was, so we started digging a little bit deeper and picking out a few of these various expenses. Now, some of them were for asphalt. Okay, yeah, that sounds reasonable because this was designed to, help improve the roads and resurface roads. Didn't think much about that, except that, of course, all of the projects where this money was earmarked had been completed. All the blacktop had been completed. So even though that was a curiosity, that was explainable. But there was another couple of entries that really bugged us to no end. One was a bill for $30,000 for groceries.
For groceries?
Groceries, yeah. $30,000 for groceries, of which a large portion of that went to things like dog food, cat food, paper products, just unbelievable amounts. And since there was such a large amount going to dog food and cat food, one could only imagine that it had to do with maybe the animal shelter. Lo and behold, it did not. It was there was a special project and a special arrangement that one of the commissioners had put in there using some, I don't know, how would you say this, wordsmithing. And again, they were busted, took this information, and upon request one more time, turned it over to the DA. Now, these are blatant violations of the public trust. Having uncovered those blatant violations, one would reasonably expect that some action would follow in order to rectify or hold responsible those that had initiated these actions. Time went by, and nothing happened. I talked to the DA personally on many occasions after that. Asked if it was going before a grand jury. Asked what was happening, and could never give an answer from that point forward. And to this day, it has never been answered, which means one thing. That DA, of her own volition, decided to use prosecutorial discretion and not pursue any charges against the people. One of those persons involved was the county attorney. Now, what the relationship between the county attorney and the DA is or was, I cannot tell you. But I can tell you that a pattern emerged. And that pattern was that once these illegalities had been uncovered, they were systematically swept under the rug. And having discovered that, once again, we discover the weakness of all the various groups and entities that have been formed for the purpose of holding them responsible. And that leads me back to these boards of review. We're getting a different take with this aspect. We're getting a new reading on Article 61 of the Magna Carta. That's the very same article that people have used to justify convening common law grand juries. And they're right in doing that. There's no problem, except the grand jury by itself has no teeth where they are currently structured, because there is no enforcement arm for making sure that those presentments are in fact dealt with. Not so the case with the board of review. Board of review will act in many different capacities. It can be a grand jury, but it can also be a court, and it can also be its own enforcement arm. So that when a DA or sheriff decides of their own volition not to prosecute a crime that is verifiably been committed, this board can then step in and effect the arrest that the DA refused to do. So that's where we're at right now, Clayton. We're forming the charter for this group, and working with a small group of individuals to get that done before we officially start taking action. And the first official act will be to get in front of our city council here in Stockbridge, Georgia, when they convene on January 4th. And what we'll do initially will be A, to introduce ourselves, and B, to go after the flags that they continue to run in every one of these federal and local municipalities, the flags that they sit under, the flags that do not represent us, we the people, the flags that represent the law of admiralty, the law of the sea, in other words, those gold fringed flags you see flying everywhere. We're going to go after them first because that's the first target, and it does work. I've already gotten one commission, the Clayton County Commission, to replace theirs, and now I want to do the same here in this county and in the city.
This bar association. Now, for a lot of people don't understand what a bar association is. It isn't a license, it's a membership in a club, and it's a private club, probably headquartered in the city of London, right next door to the Rothschild banking system there in the city of London, that the Queen has to ask permission to enter there. Is that accurate?
And Clayton, as far as we know, that's accurate. Getting a firm, verifiable grip on that particular information is proving to be a little on the elusive side.
Yeah, kind of like trying to determine who the owners of the Federal Reserve are, huh?
Not unlike that. That is correct. But what we do know is that the court systems, as they are currently structured, have officers that are responsible for maintaining that court system in whatever structure it is. And right now, that structure is that the attorneys, both for the prosecution and the defense, are working for the court system. The judge is working for the court system. Now, reason and logic would dictate that you have to assume that if you've got 3 players working for the same entity, and you've got 2 people, a plaintiff and a defendant, coming into that system, that the court system is going to be structured so that somehow, some way, whatever this case involves is going to also involve a transfer of some property, some thing, from one entity to another, which falls in line with the with the definitions of attorney. If you try and define attorney, what you'll find is all kinds of language that generally refers to them as lawyers. But to dig a little bit deeper and find the roots of the word itself, you look to something called a term or attorney, and it all comes down to the same thing. It's a transfer. The courts transfer money and property from you as the plaintiff or defendant to them as the court. So it's a racket. Top down, it's a racket. And one of the things that, one of the key ingredients to that racket is admiralty law, or admiralty law.
The gold fringe on the flag.
Exactly.
Don't bring that Constitution into my court.
So that's why I want to make that the first order of business, because let's face it, if we try and do this at the federal level to begin with, nothing's going to happen.
Let me address that for just a second, Carl. At the federal level, we've got the Congress, we got the Senate, we got the executive branch, we've got the judicial branch, and in every one of those branches, we've got attorneys, we've got bar associations, we've got lawyers, and the president and his wife are lawyers. The Senate is made up of lawyers. I mean, except for Dr. Ron Paul, you know, they're all attorneys. So they and the Ayn Rand, I believe, had it pretty accurate in Atlas Shrugged when she said the government has no control over honest citizens, so they have to make criminals out of us. And that's exactly what the courts do. They get a bonus. The judges get a bonus if they find you guilty. You know, I had an attorney that represented me here in Texas when I got busted with pot in Texas, and he got me to take a plea because they threatened me with 99 years if we went to court. And I was pretty young, so that kind of scared me. And they made him president of the bar association for getting me to take that plea.
Well.
And by the way, no corpus delicti, no victim, no crime. You know, so this whole war on drugs is really a war on American people, which and I'm not quite sure. I haven't quite figured out yet whether or not we're under communism or fascism, because every plank on the Communist Manifesto is intact in America today. Considering the abolition of private property, heavy progressive income tax, abolition of all rights of inheritance, and confiscation of property of all immigrants and rebels. Whoa! Is that marijuana I smell? We're going to have to take this car. We're going to have to take this money. We're going to have to take this property.
They're transferring whatever you have into what they have. That is the process known as attornment. So, you know, they've done a great job. They transferred what was common law, where no harm, no foul, into statutory law, corporate law, where it becomes strictly a matter of transference of wealth. Transferring from the people to in this case, the judicial system. And I can hardly wait to dig into that and find out exactly what is going on with this fund that all of the courts, and I mean all of the courts, seem to be able to contribute to on a monthly basis. That fund is managed by a company called, I guess, if I'm not mistaken, it's PIMP CO, PIMCO. And that's probably a very appropriate term, because all of these players are pimping for this fund. And I can hardly wait to find out what the balance of that fund is, since they've done such a tremendous job of transferring wealth from people to them. And why is that important? Because you start finding that things run in circles. They run in circles around money, always around money. Follow the money. You'll follow the crimes. You'll follow certain players. And PIMCO, that group right there, has one of the largest reserves that are currently being used to manipulate the stock exchange. You think people who get involved in the stock exchange, the individual investor, is really making a difference or having any bearing on the stock market? No. It's institutional money that drives that. It's the bankers that drive that.
Well, our founding fathers told us, Thomas Jefferson, who gave us our Declaration of Independence and contributed to the Constitution and our Bill of Rights, he told us, if you ever allow a private bank to issue your money, the banks and the corporations that spring up around them will leave your children homeless in the land we conquer. We got over 1 million families that got moved out of their houses. The banks are becoming your landlord. Well, we'll rent it back to you. We'll rent it back to you, but we're going to own it now. And people got their homes taken away from them by banks they never heard of, they never signed a contract with, they never had anything to do with. So this is about as criminal as it gets, isn't it?
Well, of course it is. But then we get back around to the bottom line, which is, what are you going to do about it? And we know that we're not going to be able to do anything about it using the current structure that is available out there. So the only thing we can do is re-engage and revert back to the laws of the land that were in place for the first 100 years or so, meaning common law. No harm, no foul. Getting away from statutory or corporate law, which is what you have in the courts right now. And to do that requires people. People of courage, people of conviction, people that are going to stand by and say, we're not going to put up with this. Just because you don't feel it's your duty to prosecute the friends that you may have in positions of public service doesn't mean that we can't. And we must. We must band together, as we are doing here in my county, with the solemn duty and responsibility of holding them accountable, removing them from office where appropriate, and cleaning this mess up, one jurisdiction at a time. Now, that's the local level stuff. There's a parallel effort going on out there right now. That parallel effort is the declaration of sovereignty by all the states. Now, most of them have already done this in conjunction with being parts of these failed attempts called RUSA and nation states and so on and so forth. But there's a new group out there that is not allowing itself to fall into the same traps as these previous attempts. And that group is called the Union States. And as of Monday night, was it Monday night? No, as of Tuesday night, that group laid the foundation for the rest of the states to now join in union with the original 9, just as they did back at the founding of this nation. And that group is going to grow very rapidly into the national force that can be drawn upon by any of these board of review or common law courts for that, or common law juries for that matter. They will have backup now. They will have the place to go with their presentments where they can actually be dealt with and actually be heard, and results can actually be expected. So we got 2 fronts we're working on, and those 2 are going to meet in the middle. The middle is going to be that point in time where the confrontation by necessity will have to occur. Let me give you an example. When a board of review comes up with the evidence that commissioner, council person, dog catcher, local judge has breached the oath of office, has breached their job description, has breached the law in doing their job, and we find that the DA is going to refuse to prosecute. At that point, we get to that fateful moment in time where it's time to either move or get off the path. That time when we're going to have to come together as a group and go in and physically remove that person and remand them over for custody to the sheriff. That, my friends, is the pivotal moment in our current history that will shake things up like no others. It has the potential for being the beginning of the revolution, the beginning of the rebellion. The revolution is already underway, but the actual beginning of the struggle, physical struggle between right and wrong. That's the crossroads that most of us have been wondering how we are going to get to.
The biggest problem in all this is really what I have tried to address for the last 20 years. When I saw how the press, our mainstream media, covered the incident in Waco, they were trying to somehow justify these jackbooted thugs for going in and murdering 17 little children and their families. They were trying to justify it. Well, they had to do that to save them from a child molester. Don't believe that. Don't believe that ever happened. And I started the militias over that and started this magazine because we aren't getting the truth from our mainstream media. They're not addressing this. They're not addressing. They'll tell you about, we had to bail out these banks because they were too big to fail. We had to kick in this door and handcuff these people who were growing tomatoes in their backyard. We had to stomp on their tomatoes because it was against the neighborhood association. The mainstream media is not covering this, and the Rothschild, or the banking system that took over our money in 1913, they bought Reuters before 1913 and late 1800s. They bought the news, and they assigned editors in 25 of the major papers in the United States to control the news that you get. This is why I do this show, Carl. This is why I do this publish this magazine here. And of course, they've tried to kill me for that.
That's why the internet has rendered a lot of the what you call mainstream media rather ineffectual now, because the real information is starting to get out, and it's through shows like this that occurs. So, yeah, I want to thank you, Clayton, for being a part of that. This is one of those important aspects to the big picture. The news is going to have to get out there. The truth is going to have to get out there. The truth is the only thing that's going to set us free, and the truth will wake up many.
Well, wait a minute. Did you just quote from the Bible? I don't know if we're supposed to be doing that.
You know,
there is an attack on Christianity right now, and the mainstream churches. I almost can't blame them for those mainstream churches that got the Masonic cornerstone there, dedicated to their worshipful master, and you know, the Bible is still, that's what our laws were based on. This is where our founding fathers got their inspiration, and it's a guide to civilization. You know, I tell people, man, how can we never see you in church, Clay? I said, because every time I walk out that door, I'm in my church. God gave me this planet. God gave us the wind. God gave us the sun. We can power our homes, and this is one of the projects I'm working on. Self-sufficient, completely self-sufficient, independent home.
Well, I hope that you go ahead and file your paperwork to be a sovereign when you do that, because you're going to have a load of agents come down on you when you go completely off the grid like that. There's going to be many attempts to prevent you from doing that, because self-sufficiency is not something that goes hand in hand with the current government structure.
No, it doesn't. I've just had Paul Pantone on. He developed a carburetor. You can get 70 miles to gallon on this carburetor. You can burn waste oil in the gas tank using his carburetor. And they put him in an insane asylum for 3.5 years. Took us 3.5 years to get him released.
I'm very familiar with that story, and there's many such stories like that. Again, the government structure being in control of something called the patent office allows them to do just about anything with our intellectual property that they want. Nothing belongs to the individual anymore. That's the problem.
You can't build that magnetic generator that'll run forever without using any fuel and generate all your electricity, because that's a perpetual motion machine. We can't allow you to have a patent on that.
Nope, they will never allow a patent on that. So people have been trying to work around that by claiming more efficient motors. You know, and it's all a workaround. Everything we do is a workaround the enslaving nature of this federal government. Everything we do revolves around that, because none of us want to spend time in the local county locum, known as the jail, but everybody seems destined to be there at some point in time in their life.
Well, let's talk about that for a minute. I've told people, you know, the best thing you can do is abolish all the laws against victimless crimes, tear down that wall between us and Mexico, replace it with tables, let the Peruvians bring all their cocaine up, let the Colombians bring all their opium up, whatever, lay it on the table, pay a duty on it, and let Americans take it back home with them, take it off the street, do it at home in the privacy of their home if they want to do it. If they want to kill themselves that way, I'd just assume they kill themselves. It's cheaper to dispose of the body than it is to keep them in jail for 20 years.
Yeah. That's true enough, Clay. That won't happen because there's nothing in it for the attorneys out there. Again, you're going to come full circle to that. If you can't feed this massive beast, this leviathan, which is the wholly separate and completely irrelevant court system, the same court system that gives us the highest incarceration rate of any nation in the world, including the communist nations, the highest percentage of killers to the people of any nation. We have that right here. It's very lucrative. And it still remains all about the money. So, again, folks, we're going to have to work at the local level. Some will be working at the state level. I don't have a lot of hope initially for them, because the only real answer is to re-empower the constitutional reps that you have within your county, and there are 5 of them, the biggest of which, of course, will be the sheriff. And then you've got the chief magistrate from the court. That one is not a constitutional rep by virtue of the fact that these court systems are basically foreign entities. The clerk of court, that one I'm not so sure of, but being involved with the court system, one can only logically deduce that they are in league with the chief magistrate. So there's 2 of the 5 constitutional reps that can be discounted up front. So now you've got the tax commissioner, and I'm finding more and more that they are, in fact, good constitutional reps and can be relied upon. And then the county coroner, if your county has one. Those reps are going to be the source of our, for lack of a better term, salvation. That's where we need to build relationships. That's where we need to educate. And that's where we need to focus our attentions. Those are the people whose offices will be adorned with those gold French flags, and they, in all likelihood, couldn't tell you why. But symbols being what they are.
One of my favorite things to do back 10 or 15 years ago, when I'd go to a park or a public thing, and we'd have politicians up there walking around, cameras following them, and they'd be praising our great democracy. I would walk up and say, "Excuse me, sir, could you tell me when, what Congress changed our republic into a democracy?" Benjamin Franklin referred to democracy as two wolves and a sheep voting on what's for dinner. When did that change? You got any idea? And it was kind of really interesting. The politicians disappeared, the cameras were turned off, and you had a bunch of people standing around scratching their head going, "What just happened?"
You see, the game that they're playing with us is it's a game of smoke and mirrors, and we have all kinds of historical precedents. We have what they're doing laid bare in many of the movies that you see coming out of Hollywood. Now, I haven't quite figured out why that is so, but it is. Movies like Alice in Wonderland. Who would have ever thought growing up that was a major political statement? Things like The Matrix. Good movies. But who would have thought that it was really a political statement of the state of affairs of this nation? What they are. So the warnings, the message as to which way we're going is constantly being thrown at us, but we don't get the underlying message for some reason. It just escapes the average person's ability to tie these two together.
Well, J. Edgar Hoover said one time that the average man was simply flabbergasted. I don't remember the exact term, but stunned when he came face to face with a conspiracy so vast he just couldn't believe it could exist. And that's people have been so programmed by their television that they really can't accept. Well, they're a conspiracy theorist. I'm no theorist. I got the facts. And we've got enough facts. If we had grand juries, if these grand juries were operating and the FBI and the CIA weren't working for the banks against us, we could put the right people in jail. We're not putting the right people in jail. We're putting petty criminals, we're putting blacks, we're putting kids in jails. They got no business in being there. But and yet, here's a president as he walks out of the White House, out of that revolving door, he hands $2 trillion to the banks that printed the money in the first place and charged us interest. He gave it back to them. He gave them $2 trillion, and your children will never even be able to pay the interest on that money.
Well, it's been brought to my attention that, and I haven't been able to verify this yet, so maybe I'm remiss in mentioning this, but I will anyway, that in October thanks to the media not covering this, in October we went into, this country went into receivership by an act of Congress. That receivership is allegedly going to enable the Chinese to now cash in some of that $27 trillion they hold in U.S. Treasury notes. In other words, the bill is now been called, and we have to pay it. One of the ways that they're allowing this transfer to occur is, once again, through the Federal Reserve, a private company being absorbed by, if not outright purchased by, the Chinese. Folks, we're in a very, very difficult situation. You hear time and time again how we can't pay this debt. You hear time and time again on shows like this that we've been in a perpetual state of bankruptcy since the end of the Civil War, never having paid down that national debt. The only time we've ever been, as a nation, debt-free was at the end of Jackson's tenure as president back in the 1830s. And the banks didn't have that, because they didn't have any control at that point. The central banks were literally driven out of the United States. And they spent a long time establishing the means by which they could re-enter the picture, and the means ended up being the Civil War. So
they are setting us up for another civil war right now. They are trying to set us against the police. They have militarized the police. What we saw happen in Boston when somebody set off a flashbang grenade and staged this whole massacre with people that were already lost their legs, were already crippled. They were actors. And they moved in on the neighborhood supposedly looking for a teenager. And they had SWAT teams in there. They had armored vehicles in there. They were moving people out of their homes. This was a preview of what they've got planned for us, I believe. What do you think?
Well, I don't see how we can interpret it any other way. Right? I really don't. And yeah, it's happening at breakneck speed. The media again plays a very important role in this, and the alternate media is still trying to figure out how to get the truth of the matter out there to the majority of people who have been brainwashed, as you know, by the Bluetooth, into thinking that this is just the way it is, and you will accept it regardless.
What are you, anti-government, Clay? You're anti-government? I told people, that's such bullshit. I'm the most pro-government guy that you'll ever meet. I just want the republic that was guaranteed me by the Constitution.
It's really a simple thing. It is. The problems we're experiencing right now are mainly derived from the misinterpretation of words, misapplication, the changing of the meaning of words. And if you'd like to give a clue, a sense as to how this has been allowed to occur, I would direct you towards the Black's Law Dictionary, 6th edition, originally printed in 1891, and brought forward and reprinted again in 1990 or somewhere thereabouts. But if you look at the preface to that, in the preface there will be a word of warning. And that word of warning just says, in a nutshell, don't rely on the definition of words in this or any other legal dictionary, because they're always changing. definitions always changing, usage always changing, and not just in the nation, but in regions, in individual courts. They're changing.
Discover what's really going on.
Hold on, we got a little station break here.
Mainstream media won't tell you. Are you frustrated with your elected politicians? Get the news behind the news at truthradio.com. At Truth Radio, you can listen live or listen to a large selection of archived programs on demand. Listen when you want to. truthradio.com. The truth is out there. All you have to do is open your mind and listen.
All right. Now that's the way it's supposed to do. No static. No, just a good commercial for Richard Palmquist, Truth Radio. The links are on my site. The links are on my site to Rise Up America. Carl Swensson. You know, the only thing I'm not sure about, Carl.
Yes.
Do you spell Swensson with two S's in the middle? Or what?
I do.
Okay.
I do.
All right. Then I got it right. Tell me about your. Let me share a little bit of what you've got on this site. It says that on 12/13/2013, I've heard about this. I'd like for you to elucidate a little bit. There was a meeting of delegates, two motions, both concerning guidelines for each of the newly reformed nations, remaining 37, acceptance into the Federation, were brought to the floor for a vote. Having passed both motions, the pathway for entry into the Federation was established. The 12/11/2013 delegate meeting ended with the status of the Northwest Ordinance being voted on. It was determined that this document was a necessary part of bringing the remaining territories or nations into the Federation. It was also determined that certain language and requirements unique to those times contained within it was both repugnant and offensive to the sensibilities of delegates assembled from and the law form being established. The motion was given to accept this document for reference purposes only, concerning how territories would gain admittance to the Federation. The motion was to bring this document forward for archival purposes only, and the motion carried with unanimous votes. What work remains that for this Congress of Delegates to establish the means and methods for the option of the various Indian nations to gain admittance. Now, what are we talking about there? This is a delegate meeting, and the how-to's getting your state paperwork. What we're talking about, and you elucidated on that a little bit. Many of you hearing this do not comprehend the meanings of the words United States Corporation. If you're in this category, we can only suggest you research, as all currently involved delegates have its meaning. We will soon provide links to the various websites for you to go into this in detail. What are we talking about here? Now, I understand that the United States that we've got right now is the corporate United States, headquartered in Washington, D.C. This whole world is being ruled by three cities: Washington, D.C., the Vatican, and the city of London. But what is this? What are these delegates meeting? What did you do on 12/13/13? What was this delegate meeting? Tell me a little bit more about that. What are you trying to accomplish? Who's this involved? And go ahead.
Okay. The movement is called the Union States Project. The Union States is a gathering of delegates from all of the states for the purpose of reestablishing the dormant, and I emphasize that word, dormant, de jure governments of the states. Each state, no matter which one you're from, is an independent, sovereign nation unto itself, joined in union with the other states through the law form that was originally established in the Articles of Confederation. When the Articles were being revised to make way for a centralized government with very highly limited enumerated powers, the games, so to speak, began at that time, where we had where we had a larger percentage of the delegates at the time involved in the rewording of the Articles. We had a smaller group dedicated to forming what was and what is now the United States. And those words are extremely important because the United States refers specifically to that area which was known as the 10 square miles in D.C. and all of its adjoining, or not all of its territories that the United States owned. Now the territories were these stretches of land that had not yet applied for or received status as a independent nation. That has since changed. As these independent nations became part of and absorbed by the United States, they were, unfortunately for the United States, allowed to have their own sovereign independence. So people began to speak of themselves, think of themselves, not as United States citizens, but as citizens from the nation of Georgia, from the nation of New York, from the nation of Virginia, from the nation of South Carolina. That was a mindset then. It is a mindset now. Those are the de jure, in fact, real governments that were established and are being reestablished right now. Notice to the world have been sent out to this effect. 9 of the original 13 have successfully completed the first phase of that, which was to join a union, exactly as it was done during our founding, for the purpose of allowing the other nations that we refer to as states to come on and be in league with this same union. The Constitution has been a sticking point for this group. How do we deal with the Constitution? We know that the language in there is repugnant to freedom and liberty. It is repugnant to the concept of a sovereign state. Well, we will deal with that when the time is right, and the time will be right whenever we get the supermajority of states together. At that point, then the issue of this document called the Constitution will be dealt with. Revisions will be made to shore up the language that has been so badly misinterpreted and usurped from the time it was originally created. That's what we're doing, and we're going to create the basis, the foundation on which to rebuild this nation using the law form that we were originally. That law form initially started with the Bible, and it was then incorporated into common law or nature's law. And that's where we have to return. If we do not return to that, then there is going to be no hope, because the lawyers will continue to change, to make laws that is used as precedents. The term they use is stare decisis. They'll continue to do the same thing that they have done from the beginning, which is to undermine and usurp the rule of law. We're here to reestablish it, and that's what we're going to do. Does that answer your question, Clay?
Pretty much. Where are your delegates coming from? Where are these people coming from? How are you gathering up? How are you organizing them?
Well, we're not putting any advertisements out there per se. This is being done by word of mouth through basically being on radio shows like this in order to get that message out. Each and every state needs to get together and form a delegation, preferably of anywhere from 10 to 15 members that are interested in reestablishing the de jure status of your individual state. And there's a method by which you can do that. That method is available to any and all. If they will use the contact information on Rise Up for America, I will be able to direct them towards the people that will be able to assist in this. I'll be able to direct them towards the Union of Territories, or currently known states, where they can get the information on a weekly basis through a call-in show, our call-in program that is going to continue to put this information out there. And at present, we've got, I think it's 7 or 8 states ready to petition the Union of States for admittance into the Union. So now we just need to get 37 states. When we get that, at that point, we'll have the basic structure of this de jure government down to the point where, when the military gets ready, they will have a de jure government, we the people, directing them once again.
Well, you know, I because of people like you, Arnie, and Dan Johnson talking about the Panda, talking about this common law courts, I have a lot of hope. I am seeing a lot of progress here. I am seeing, and the internet is doing this. The internet is fueling this. They've tried to block me on the internet for the last 10 years. I've been blocked on internet. You can't go, if you walk into Office Depot and try to use a computer there to get onto the Free American, you can't. They won't let you in. It's so they're afraid of this. They're afraid of us getting it, and it really wouldn't take much. I mean, if I had half as many people buying one issue of my magazine every 2 weeks, I would have the funds to travel this whole country the way I used to, the way I got this magazine started in the first place. And it's kind of strange, though, you know, a lot of the people, so-called patriots out there, you know, they tune into Alex Jones, they tune into GCN, they tune into some of these so-called patriot stations, and they don't get the truth out. It's like they just want to scare you, you know, and I see this echoing what happened during the so-called Cold War. I've told people, you know, the Russian people were never our enemies, but between Hollywood and the movies and the TVs, the Russians are coming, the Russians are coming. They tried to make you afraid. Be afraid. Be very, very afraid. Now, that seems to me to be what these patriot stations are doing, and they're catering to advertisers. I don't have any advertisers. I don't want to subject my advertisers, and I don't answer to advertisers. I put links to your site up because you're trying to do the right thing. I put links to the other people's site up because they're trying to do the right thing. I'm not selling them advertising. And all you got to do is let everybody you know about it know that this is what I do. I'm not being controlled by advertisers. I'm not being controlled by groups. I'm not a member of any group. And to me, you know, the whole debate on Republican and Democrat, liberal and conservative, This is all divide and conquer. This is right out of Sun Tzu.
Yeah, it is. But, you know, Clay, where we're at right now is those that are just completely wrapped up in this cycle of uncovering and then discussing problems, crises, as they come to us on a daily basis. They're always talking about something and never focusing any energies on resolving. And what you're seeing now in myself, Barney, John Darash, and any number of other people out there are people that are more in tune with the resolution side of this equation and not the discussion phase anymore. We're done discussing it. We know what the problems are, and now it's time to rectify those problems. There's a gentleman right now that is fighting. He's walking the walk and has since the first day I met him back in 2009. He has my utmost admiration, and he has suffered the slings and arrows. Yes, they put him in jail, and he has uncovered the root of this whole situation that we find ourselves in. And yes, it does revolve around the court system. In his case, it revolves around the court system in Tennessee. The person I'm talking about is retired Lieutenant Commander Walter Francis Fitzpatrick III. I want you people to look him up, and I want you to pay attention to what's going on with this gentleman, because he individually has taken on this Leviathan, and those that have offered support, like myself, have been the subject of arrest as well. One such person, whose name you also need to be familiar with, is named Darren Wesley Huff, who, by virtue of being up there to support a fellow Navy veteran, was rewarded with federal charges of transporting guns across state lines from Georgia to Tennessee for the purpose of overthrowing or invading a courthouse, the courthouse that is so corrupt there in Madisonville, Tennessee. Of course, they leveled these charges as a thought crime after the alleged incident had occurred, and there was no incident. There was no breaking out of guns. There was no transport of weapons across state lines in order to accomplish this. There was a thought. There was a thought. So a thought crime has now been punished. This man has been in jail for 2 years now. And the common thread between Darren Huff, Commander Fitzpatrick, and myself is that we were all arrested on false charges when this man of honor, discovered the illegality of the grand jury system within Tennessee. He uncovered a grand jury foreman that had been a grand jury foreman for over 20 consecutive years. Did you hear that?
Yes, sir. Yes, sir. I did.
20 consecutive years. Now, if you have any inkling as to how a grand jury works, you know that they are randomly selected. You know that the grand jury foreman is chosen from that jury pool. That jury pool has a specific length of time that it can be impaneled, and once that is done, once they have completed their task, they cannot be called up for a minimum of 2 years, I believe. At least in Tennessee, it's supposed to be 2 years. And yet here was this man, a grand jury foreman, doing it as an officer of the court for 20 consecutive years. And they have since admitted that, yeah, he's an officer of the court. He's employed by the court. So they have taken it. They have literally stolen it from beneath us. And this man laid that bare. But there's nobody in Tennessee willing to stand up for him. This is the part that's driving me out of my mind. I can't understand how the same people who gave us the Battle of Athens in 1946, look that up, folks, the same people don't seem to be populating that state anymore. Have they put something in the water? Have they done something to subdue all these people? What's going on?
Well, you know, I'm glad you touched on that, because I think that's exactly what happened. Fluoride in the water has an effect, a calming, a dumbing down effect. And America is the most drugged country in the world, and I'm not talking about people doing heroin or cocaine or methamphetamine. I'm talking about this Valium, this Luvox, these psychoactive drugs. They are, you know, my grandmother and mother, I used to wonder where I came from. My mother and grandmother just weren't that bright. Certainly not, didn't seem to approach my IQ. But I went with them. They drugged me along with them to go to the doctor at least every 2 weeks to get their prescription. I thought my grandmother was just feeble until I took one of her little red sleeping pills. Whew! Granny, wow! What have you been doing, dear? It's, they're drugged down. What have I lost here? I've lost something here. Let's see what I've lost. Problem with this call. Okay, we're trying to get it back. Okay, we've lost this for a second. Let me bring it back up. Try to bring it back up.
Welcome to Blog Talk Radio. Please enter your host pin when finished.
Our menu has recently changed.
Since it appears you're calling back into a live show, we're reconnecting you now.
All right. Trying to bring, Carl, I got you back? Okay, I got you back now, Carl?
Yeah.
The whole system went down. I'm still trying to bring one station back up. Got back up on Blog Talk, got back up on Truth Radio, and now we're back up on Crusade. Sorry about that. Homeland, I guess Homeland Security don't like me talking about our drug problems. And by God, they're drugging our children. The veterans, you come back, if you've got post-traumatic stress syndrome, well, you go to a psychiatrist. As soon as you go to the psychiatrist, they're going to use that as an excuse not to let you have arms. Well, you had to go to a psychiatrist, so you're not qualified to carry arms now. And for what? I got to be drugged because I got a conscience, because I feel bad about killing a few million innocent Iraqis, a few innocent Vietnamese, people that have never done anything to us. We are drugged, and the television, I tell people they don't call it programming for nothing. And when I started the militias around the country, Carl, I told people the best thing you can do is take your weapon out, clean it, load it, shoot the TV, and you'll be a lot better off. They don't call it programming for nothing.
That is exactly right, Clayton. So the messages are there for us to either pay attention to or ignore. Those that are that are not ignoring those messages are now so absolutely livid with the state of affairs that action is called for, and action is what will now ensue. So be prepared, keep your eyes open to the things that are going on around you, and understand that there are people out there right now that are in the mode. They have shifted from the awareness of the problems to resolution. And if you take anything away from this conversation, I hope you can take away a little hope that that some of us at some level will begin to have the desired effect of changing this back to the law form that caused this nation to flourish in the first place. Only since 1946 have we seen the rapid disintegration of the court system. And in 1946, what happened was we were given the rules of criminal procedure. Prior to that, the rules of civil procedure. These are the statutes that were meant to do away with, although they couldn't make it illegal, make antiquated common law as it was being used here in these United States. We need to bring it back. We need to bring it back now.
Now you've got me confused now, Carl. I mean, I thought I got sent here in 1946 when they dropped that atomic bomb down there in White Sands, at Trinity site in White Sands, New Mexico. Now I'm wondering if I didn't get sent here because of that factor, that them changing the laws. I mean, trying to enslave us. You know, I've died two or three times, Carl. And I kind of joke about it. I say I've been kicked out of heaven 3 times. They keep saying, "You're not done. Get back down there. Get back in that body, man. Pull out of it. Come on, get back in there."
Well, you know, there was a bomb dropped in '46. Let there be no doubt. But nobody is aware of the actual makeup of and the results of that bomb having been dropped. That bomb was the introduction of the rules of criminal procedure here in this nation. So we've got a task in front of us like no other task we've seen before. The job is sometimes daunting, sometimes overwhelming, but as long as we focus on resolution and focus our actions where they can mean the most for you, the individual, that action starts at your local city council, at your local city hall, and goes up from there to your county commissions. We have been charged by the founders to exercise and be ever vigilant in our ensuring that which was put forward initially remains as a viable law form for this country henceforth and forevermore. It's our duty, it's our responsibility. And if you don't take that seriously, there is no hope. If you do take it seriously, then you'll be doing very much like what I'm doing. But you can do it on an individual basis. Go after them. Get in their face. Do some research. Take some time. Find out where they're squirreling the.
Oops.
It's therefore, you can find it in the comprehensive annual financial reports of all of these municipalities. Every one.
Walter Burien is an old friend of mine. He's been talking about this for as long as I can remember. And where's your money going, folks? What you know, we have the right, we have the responsibility. You know, if you just sit there and stay quiet, you know, I just want to stay below the radar. I just don't want to call attention to myself. Well, then you are automatically cataloged as part of the consensus. If you don't speak up and say, well, wait a minute, why can't I have a garden in my backyard? Why can't I have a garden in my front yard? Why can't I have solar on my roof? Why can't I put up a wind generator? Why can't I do that? Who says the neighborhood association? You know, two wolves and a sheep voting on what's for dinner? No, I'm not going to go along with that. And I have put this into practice myself. They put a notice out in Socorro County that they were going to come out and put meters on our wells. They were going to zone the farms or the ranches around Socorro, in Socorro County. And I went to the county meeting and I said, I want to know what communist introduced this kind of legislation. And some little guy in a suit sitting beside me, he looked, I propose that. What are you trying to do, get people killed? You're going to come out and put a meter on my well? You know, they'll carry you off my property. And the same goes for all of the ranchers around me. You're going to come out and tell people that have been out here for 100 years, had these ranches out here for 100 years, you're going to tell them what they can do on their own property? You know, you'll find that spotted owl buried over there under that tree there. It ain't going to happen. And the county commissioners back me. They backed me up instead of this little prick lawyer that was trying to rule over someone else. You can do this. I mean, consensus means that you sit down and shut up and do what we tell you. Well, I won't do that. I flat won't do that, and you shouldn't either.
Amen to that. So, folks, you know, the die's been cast. I don't know what you want to do with it. I know what I must do, and I will continue to do. I will build my board of review, and I will make sure that it turns into exactly what it was designed to be. And that is the buffer between we the people and this leviathan we call the corporation, that are known as the United States.
You know, J.B. Campbell, he was involved in anti-terrorist movement and Rhodesia, which after the communists took over became Zimbabwe. They started killing the farmers, and he came back here, started the militias before me, and he's put together something called the American Defense Party, which is really a non-party. He said the central government has announced its plans to arrest us, assassinate us, and trap us into a non-functioning socialist medical system that would only destroy our health, run by the most notorious financial terrorist in U.S. history, the IRS, and I don't need to go on. No, we don't need a central government, and probably can't survive much longer with the one we have. It must be dismantled and prohibited forever. This can be done by a strong, well-armed political party when its numbers approach those of the militia movement in the 90s. And he also said that there's three things. First, a police review board, a civilian police review board, and a couple other things on here. But this is people taking charge of their own county, asking the questions. Just because somebody is a lawyer is not doesn't give them the right to rule over you. And that's exactly what they're doing. That's exactly what they are doing to us.
And that's exactly why things like the Patrick Henry Review Board, things like the Union States Project, things like what J.B. Campbell is doing, that's exactly why we all need to work together. At present, we don't. We have individual factions out there, all well-intended, and you won't find me arguing with that. All well-intended, but all fragmented.
That's right. Here's JB's three-part plan is to dismantle the police state and prevent martial law. Is a neighborhood watch. Second part, civilian police review boards, and third part, bring the military into the resistance. Now, one of the projects I'm working on is called the Noah's Ark Project, Operation Greenfire, and what Noah West is suggesting here, he's a builder, and he figured out that these houses that we live in, these houses that were built for us on those the former self-sufficient family farm, the houses in the neighborhoods where you're not allowed to grow a garden in your backyard because the neighbors might not like it. This is insanity. We should be growing food, not grass. Then we don't have to transport it. You can go over and trade a tomato to your neighbor for an apple. You know, we need to be able to power our own homes. I said Obama's idea of greening America is to lease the top of that mountain over there to a Chinese firm so they can bring their giant windmills in, set them up there, pipe that power back down the mountain to the power company so they can sell it to you and charge you more for having green energy. God gave us the wind, God gave us the sun, God gave us magnetics. Put it in your garage, put it on your roof, and tell the neighborhood association to kiss your ass. You know, the Noah's idea of these homes, 3-story homes, with a garden on the roof, water in the basement, trap all the rainwater. Yeah, I know if you live in Colorado, there's a law against that. Tell them where they can stick that law. They can't control, they don't have any right to keep the water that falls on your roof. You don't have to let that run in the drainage ditch. And now Noah's plan, it's expensive to buy these houses because he wants to provide jobs for veterans. He wants to make communities out of this. It's a great, noble plan, and I'm happy to be involved with it. But it can be done. I planned it on a little smaller scale. I said, you know, you could pitch a teepee here that you can buy for $5,000. You can put that teepee up. You can put a juice box on it. Now that's a little portable solar unit that'll certainly run your computer. That'll certainly run your lights. That'll certainly run a little 12-volt refrigerator. You can put this up for under. I think the juice box is about $500. It'll fit on the back of my Harley, and you can become self-sufficient. You don't have to pay that $150 electric bill every month. You don't have to. We've even getting to the point now where you can set up an electric vehicle and put wheels on it that will recharge the batteries while you're rolling. I mean, maybe that's going to fall down under the government's idea of a perpetual motion machine. But all of this is technically possible. But they're not going to tell you about it on television. They're not going to tell you about it in your newspapers because they want you to be a good slave. Don't rebel against your masters.
Listen, we've got the tools out there right now, should we want to utilize them, to be self-sufficient. Self-sufficiency is the thing that scares this government more than anything else because it empowers the individual. And that's what we must get back to as quickly as possible. And those of you who are following the movement out there to find and then make available to the rest of the world these free energy projects should be spending a little bit of time, following that stuff, because there are right now there are these energy products available. Randall Mills has one coming up with, it's called Black Light Power. You can read all about those on a website called PISWiki. It's free energy, basically. That's P as in Paul, E as in Edward, S as in Sam, W as in William, I as in Idaho, K as in Kilo, I as in Idaho.com. I suggest that people periodically take a look there at some of the free energy products that are becoming more and more available to people, because they've understood and realized that no free energy perpetual motion will ever get a patent. And if one is so issued, that patent will be then buried and never be allowed to be used again. So people are now taking a different tack. They're bypassing that altogether, open sourcing this so that others can make these products themselves. And they're going to do it in a slightly different way. Some are still, locked up and trying to get some reimbursement for all the work they've done by virtue of having these patents. But those people always seem to get to that eventual roadblock that prevents them from bringing them to market. They're out there, they're being developed, and we have to somehow, some way, make sure that it gets to the public in general so that these devices can be replicated easily. And the type of structure that you're talking about, NOAA, would become infinitely more viable if any of these products were allowed to come to market. So, there's many different fronts, but guys, regardless of anything else, if you hear anything that I'm saying, listen to this. We must figure a way to bring the various groups together. Check your egos in at the door when you come to such meetings, and get everybody together for the purpose of reestablishing our de jure government as it was meant to be. We can do this. It's our charge to do this. It's our responsibility. Our kids, our grandkids, they are relying on us. Not to sit here and endlessly discuss the issues and the problems, but to fix them. That's our job. And we're either going to take that seriously and do something about it, or we're just going to continue to sit back, drink our fluoridated water, take our pharmaceutical drugs, and just remain in the stupor, remain in the matrix.
Yeah, take that Valium and chill out. Turn on the television. Come on, guys. It's this is probably the worst thing that you can do. And all of the technology, we've had this for 100 years. By the way, just think about this for a second. How did Lindbergh cross the Atlantic in a Piper Cub? How did he get the fuel to do that? We've had the technology. We've had these machines, these magnetic generators, this electric generators. We were able to power a Cessna to cross the Atlantic Ocean almost 100 years ago. What happened to that? What happened to that?
It's rather amazing that nobody looks at the obvious, and that is an obvious. They try and tell us that that plane was loaded down with fuel in America and flew across the Atlantic. I'm sorry, but that thing would have never left the ground if it had had all the fuel necessary to make that transatlantic flight. Never been able to leave the ground. So here we are, folks. We're at that crossroads. And as if you will get in the mindset of being action-oriented as opposed to being in that frame of mind where you just want to continually, excuse the expression, bitch and piss and moan about all of these problems that are being foisted upon us. Yeah, it's your choice. I choose to take action, and many others out there are doing the same thing. I hope you're going to be one of them, because we need to walk. We need to walk the walk. We need to support those that are uncovering these egregious violations of the public trust. We need to hold them accountable and bring them into a court of record where they can be summarily adjudicated.
I think trees are still hanging the fence too. I might be wrong, but if they're not working for the people of this country, if they're not trying to make your life better, if they're only here to milk you for everything you got, be afraid of Clay Douglas. He started the militias, man. Donate to the ADL, donate to Southern Poverty Law, and we'll bring him to the attention of Homeland Security. This is what they do. This is a war, folks, and the war's against you. In my film called True Face of FEMA, I filmed the first Homeland Security meeting, and they sat there and told the law enforcement in Albuquerque that we're in for a long war. It might go longer than the Cold War. And the enemy's weak. The enemy doesn't have planes. It doesn't have tanks. It doesn't have helicopters. And so they're going to use unconventional methods. The enemy he's talking about is you. It's us. We'll need 400,000 troops, well-armed, well-trained, organized, disciplined troops to control the American people in case of a single outbreak of smallpox in a major metropolitan area. What? You want us to line up on the Walmart parking lot to get a vaccination for a disease that's been eradicated for 100 years, and you want us to take a vaccination that's going to give us a mild case of that disease to protect us? You're damn right I'm not taking that. You're damn right I'm not going to do that. And I'm not going to let any of my neighbors, any of my friends, or anybody else do that. You better bring those troops out, because we ain't taking it. We ain't going to do that. This is beyond common sense. This is the police state in action. And, you know, I've warned people that what they did to the white Christian Russians in Russia when the Soviet Union was formed, when the Bolshevik Revolution, when they murdered the Tsar, over here they gave us the Federal Reserve. They're doing the same thing to us. They're going to do the same thing to us, and in fact, they may have already done it. It's very hard to see how many people have died from this barium and this aluminum that they're spraying over you every day. That spray is going into your water supply, into your lakes, into your gardens. You know, Monsanto gave you Agent Orange that killed a bunch of our veterans and a lot of Vietnamese. But, you know, they're giving you the genetically modified food that rats won't eat, but they're feeding it to you and your children. They may have killed more Americans than the 60 million they killed in Russia, because we're not keeping track. We're not keeping track. Oh, well, he just died of a heart attack at 43. Oh, he just died of cancer at 24. Oh, well, where did he get that? Where did this come from? We didn't have it before. We didn't have it in 46. Wasn't anybody dying from heart attacks? Wasn't anybody dying from cancer? You know, and we only killed a few million Indians with the smallpox. You know, I've often said I think we went in the wrong direction. We chose these little box houses for Europe instead of going with the Indian lifestyle, which was far more healthy and far more productive, you know, as Chief Red Eagle said, you know, before the white man, you know, women did all the work, men hunted and fished and had sex all night. Only the white man would be stupid enough to try to think he could improve on a system like that.
Well, folks, it's the mindset. Absolutely, it's the mindset. As soon as you get your mind right, we can get this done. It ain't gonna happen until then. And to that end, there's a document that I hope I can get up here pretty quick that all of you need to hear. Unfortunately, yesterday, for reasons I have yet to be able to explain, my computer decided it was going to give up the ghost, so I had to rebuild. I have, and the last remaining part of that is that I need to load a couple of files so that I can make them available to you guys and read them. You'll find some of the more important documents on a site called, let's see, ASOI.us. That's ASOI.us. All States Organic Initiative. This site has some very, very, very good information on it that I'll need to look at and try and absorb. It's real important that you absorb this information, because in there you will find some empowering documents that it'll go to the root of our issues, it'll go to the root of our problems, and offer the solutions necessary to bring this thing back one jurisdiction at a time.
Carl, if you would, send me over via Skype here, send me over the links on that free energy site that you talked about, and anything else that you think people ought to see, and I'll put it up right beside our show, right beside your information, up on the Free American, and we'll leave it up there. I mean, people, this is what the Free American's about, folks. It's bringing people like you, letting you hear people like Carl that's trying to give you some good advice, people that are trying to do something. Solutions. I like solutions. I don't like just bitching about it. I mean, I've done that too, just like all of us. You know, I bring you the news about what they're trying to do, and even today, I mean, you covered the old idea they're talking about selling the Federal Reserve to the Chinese. Whoa, let the Chinese print our money. Won't that be a good? It's been financing the Rothschilds, been financing the Morgans since, and they used that money to kill Nikola Tesla, to destroy anybody that was trying to do something for the American people. And we've got to be able to work together, and this is the importance. This is really the importance of the Free American, this magazine, this radio show. I do need some help. I do need some donations. You can do that at freeamerican.com. You can buy the magazine for $2.99 every issue, $2.99. I've got 10 issues out now. And then you can share it with anybody you want. I'm not saying, oh, we'll just charge everybody $3, or I'm saying, get this information. You get it. That gives me your email, gives me a connection to you, and then you can pass it out to as many people as you want. If they want another issue, then they can come to me. They can come to shop.freeamerican.com and get it. If you want to make a donation to help me get the gas, be able to go to these places, to talk to these people, to go to these events, make a donation. freeamerican.com. I got donate buttons all over the place. We can do this together, and you know, it frustrates the shit out of me, Carl, to think about during the last presidential election when you got to choose between John McCain or Barack Obama, John Songbird McCain, that turned his back on our veterans, did everything he could to upset the whole veterans movement, or Barack Obama, who ain't even qualified to be president, simply a CIA, Mossad, or Soviet Union style change agent. He was pretty honest about it. Yeah, change. Here go. Well, you can keep the change. You can keep the change. I'll keep what we got. And that we donated $1 billion, $700 million to Republicans, $600 million to Democrats. Where'd that money go? Where'd that money? Oh, they used it to pay for ads for Barack Obama. They did that. They all that money went to the media companies, the television companies, and they didn't tell you about Gary Johnson running for president. They didn't tell you about any the libertarians that were trying to run for president. So it ain't that ain't the way it's supposed to go, folks. Free American told you about Charles Collins. And every time Charles Collins got up to tell you in the Republican conventions that we could buy back the Fed, we could wipe out that $6 trillion debt, which has grown to about $16 trillion. We don't have to pay that. You don't know that. Your children don't know that. That's the way they enslave you. And we can stop that. We can stop that right now if you let people know about this show, about this magazine. Folks, we need you to do that. I need you to do that. Right now, I'm all alone. Arnie came on my show. He made a donation, so I was able to get my motorcycle fixed. So I got transportation. Carl's working on a printer for me so I can make flyers and pass them out around neighborhoods. We're working together. We are trying to do the right thing. We're trying to help. I'm not telling you to go out and kill anybody. I'm telling you, if you're going to shoot anybody, shoot the goddamn TV. That's all you need to do. Carl, we're out of time. We're out of time, but I want to have you back soon.
Well, Clay, I appreciate the opportunity to come here, and I also gave you a document I want you to take your time and read, hopefully read to the people. It's called The Orders of the People. And I want you to review that, read that. It will flow so easily off your tongue that it'll make you very much appreciated, because these are the words that we need to be using across the board.
All right, sir. I've got that, and I've got all the links. I'll put those up on my site probably as soon as we hang up here.
Thank you for the time, King. I do appreciate it, and I hope some people were able to get information to be of use to them, as it is of use to me.
All right.
Good luck.
Carl Swensson, thank you very much. Click on Carl's name on my website. You can download this show, put it on your website, put it up on everywhere, tell people about it, send out emails. Let people know about this. The last 3 or 4 shows here on the Free American have been nothing but good information, positive actions that you can take. Talking about the grand jury, talking about the people against the NDAA. You know, all these unconstitutional laws, man. We can stop this. They're being passed by your lawyers and the Congress. We got to stop it. We got to stop it. God bless you all. Thank you. We're out of time. See ya.
See you, Clay.
Bye-bye.